And you are live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our chat tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking with Jessica Sinders of the Fence Authority and Amber Lundt with SWI of Florida. And we're going to be talking about supplier relations from the contractor's perspective. So I'll go ahead and start with the first question, which is, do you have certain suppliers that you buy from exclusively, or do you shop around? And this one's going to go to Amber first.
So what's most important to me is making sure that I'm representing my company well and making sure that my customers are getting the best thing. So I do shop around and make sure that we're getting the best deal, because if I get the best deal, then so can they. But we do have certain vendors that we really work with a lot, that I adore, like Stevens Pipe and Steel. Kyle Garner is my rep out there, and he is just fabulous. Like, he is easy to get answers from. He's fast. I do use the same vendors a lot, but I'm not going to say that the vendors we use now are ones we'll always use and exclusively use.
Gotcha. And Jessica, how about you?
So we definitely have a few products that we buy that we have, a vendor that we've been working with long enough that we're pretty exclusive with. We have pretty tight relationships with them, but that is just for a few products. I would say for the main breadth of what we do, we probably usually have 2 to 3 vendors that we buy from. And we really like that because we can have relationships with them, but it also gives us options to shop around a little. And plus it also provides us with like backups. If one vendor is having trouble acquiring a product, we have someone else we can go to. So we always like to kind of keep our options open that way, because, the most important thing is to be able to sell something, we have to be able to get it. So we want to make sure we have as many options as possible to get that. But, so I would say exclusive for just a few things, but mainly we do like to have a few options for our products.
Yeah, I agree. There's plenty of times where you'll go to one vendor and they're out of something, or it's back ordered for them, but another one will have it. So having those options is really great. But then having somebody that knows you and knows what you need and can help you is also really nice.
Yeah, and that's why it's nice to kind of almost have like 2 or 3 specific ones that you work with, so that you they know you, you know them, but you're not like tied to one vendor only. Like, I think that system works pretty well for us.
Agreed.
Nice. It does sound like we have some preferences, but as you said, not an exclusive relationship. And I apologize, forgot to mention, if you're in the chat and you're leaving comments, if you can go to streamyard.com/Facebook and just give them permission to show your name, that's really helpful. And then we'll be able to see who's sending the comments in tonight. So the next question, I'll let Jen take that one.
So for those companies that you use primary, like your primary go-to company, say that they do have what you need in stock, how long did it take you to establish that relationship? Because I know that stuff doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't. I mean, you have to kind of get used to people, and everybody's personality is different. You find people that instantly you just seem to understand. You can say, what you need, and they just get you. There's vendors where I can be like, I don't know chain link very well. That's just not my expertise when it comes to fencing. And I can go to them like, look, this is kind of what I'm looking for. Can you help me? And so you build those relationships with them over time, and it's really helpful. We've been working, so I've been with SWI for 1.5 years, and I'd say probably at least half of that, if not more than that, has been with the vendors that I'm with now. So it is something that takes a little bit of time of finding people. If you're lucky, you get a place that is great and they have the same people there that are there long term. I really like having my person to call at a location, and then if they're not there or on vacation, I can have backups. But it's nice building those relationships with them. I think it kind of just depends on each individual person how long that really takes.
Yeah, for us, I mean, I can't even necessarily speak to this because I've been working at our company for 17 years, and I would say the majority of our vendors we had a relationship established with them prior to me even working there. Like
Wow.
that's how long we have established these relationships with
Wow.
some of our split rail suppliers, our hardware suppliers, like our sales rep for hardware supplier. We've been working with him for so long that he's recently retired and his son-in-law has taken over as our sales rep now. So, I mean, those relationships obviously have been going on for some of them for a couple of decades now, but you know, that's relationships that our CEO, my boss, established, again, like I said, before I even got there. And so, I mean, they were well established before I got there. So I can't even speak to how long it took him to make that. But now that we have them, again, we stick with them for a long time, as long as we feel like, you know, they are doing right by us and we like them, which we do. Most vendors seem to be very nice and friendly. We have a few that we started working with after I came in. And I would say that, you know, it probably takes a couple of years really working with a vendor to really like feel like you have a really good personal relationship with them, because you really need time to see how they react to your needs. And, you know, when there's a problem that comes up, you know, how can they help you with that problem, you know? So, I mean, it's definitely, I would say in my experience, it's not an instantaneous thing. It takes multiple years to really get a really good relationship. But once you do, you know, it's nice to have someone you can stick with.
Nice. And Susan was asking, Susan K. Worley, how important are those relationships that you have established to the longevity of your business? How do they affect the success of your company? And I'll go ahead and direct that to Jessica first.
I think it's really important because it's hard to grow your company if you don't have, you know, a well-known set of vendors that you can trust to get you the materials you need and give you the pricing that you need to be able to make a profit and sell at a price that customers can buy at. You know, like if you're in a situation where you constantly don't know where your material is coming from, it's really hard to try and get new customers and grow your business and bring in new employees because, you know, things are just too unsure. So I would say that the relationships are really important. Like in both cases, you know, they like having us as a long-term, you know, relationship because, you know, we're a steady stream of business for them. And like I said, for us, it's nice to have a place that we know we can go to and we know what the product is. We know the quality of the product. You know, we can trust them to help us with pricing and problems and everything like that. And it would be a lot harder if, you know, every year we were working with someone new. I think it would be a lot more difficult for us to develop our company.
And Amber, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, we need them as much as they need us. If we're not buying from our vendors, then how can they, you know, succeed and grow? But without having good vendor and good vendor relationships, I mean, you can't get things. How do you get things as fast? Like I have vendors where I know in a pinch, if I need to, I can call them. They will UPS me stuff if it's small enough to get it to me fast enough. Like those relationships really make all the difference in us being able to provide not just fast materials to our customers, but quality stuff. Like having a good vendor that you trust, that you can just order things from and not have to worry about, like, is it going to be the quality that I'm expecting it to be, that I'm selling to people? Because I mean, you can go down to Home Depot and Lowe's and buy some material, but it's not going to be the quality. And you really get those relationships with the vendors and you can trust what they're selling.
Definitely.
Because, I mean, it is your guys' reputation on the line with the materials that you're installing. So
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're not going to blame whoever I buy the materials from. If I install some bad materials, they're going to call me and want to know why I did not do a good job. So that quality it's really what makes the difference.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. All right.
All right. So even though, so you have like a main vendor, you know, for certain materials and you have some backups, I know there's new vendors popping up all the time and some are just in and out, gone with the wind. Do you guys keep an eye on like new vendors? Are you constantly kind of looking at the new vendors that are popping up and giving them a chance? or do you just stick with what you know and wait and see if the new vendors are going anywhere? Amber,
The way we do things, people look at us crazy all the time anyhow, like with our no dig stuff and driven pin systems. And of course, Mark Olson and Dan and all of them just being their crazy selves. People like to question what we do. So I can see how, new vendors would want a chance. Am I price shopping around with them? No, not really. But that's mostly just because I already have really good relationships with the vendors I have that if they can give me as good of a deal, as good of a product, then, I'm never going to say no to somebody because of the way that we do things. We don't usually say no to trying something new. You don't know until you give it a shot. But am I going to drop on my vendors for some new person that's coming into town just because they have good prices? No, because I could order a truckload for them and it turns out to be the worst I've ever bought in my life.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, like we don't often go out looking for new vendors. When they come to us, I will say, sure, send me your information. And, like Amber said, like often though, because we have such good relationships with the plethora of vendors we already have, like they don't even meet the pricing that we get from them. And in that case, they're like, what's my reasoning for even looking at them? If they do have good pricing, sometimes we'll get samples from them. Then often that's not the quality that we want or that we expect from our product. And like, oh, well, that's why it's cheaper because it's a cheaper product.
Yes,
so,
right.
I mean, like, while we're not unwilling to look at these vendors, we don't often see a reason to go too far with them,
Yeah.
And again, and often we're not, if something does come up, we're not switching vendors. We're just adding them to our roster of people that we buy from. Like we try to never burn bridges. Like we want to keep our relationships with everyone if we can.
Exactly. I love that you said that because you can try new stuff, and we have vendors that approach us all the time that want us to try out products, and I'm never going to not give you a chance if I believe in it. Your samples are good, your product line seems good. I'm not going to just completely block out any opportunity for that because I want to always be able to offer the best, and you won't know you have the best unless you have checked out other stuff. But I'm definitely not going to drop on my vendors that I know have good stuff, good quality for a chance of something else and just go whole way into something completely different.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you guys do have kind of a process where you vet those new ones where, like you said, you're bringing in their samples, you're checking the quality of the samples against the pricing, and then you'd make a decision on whether you're going to give them a chance to even impress you. So that's an interesting way to protect yourselves from.
It's a good
Yeah, definitely. Because, you don't want to, like Amber said, like start going down a hole of being like, oh, this seems really good. And you buy a bunch of product and it's not what you expected, or the support's not there for that product from them, like you don't want to jump into anything without knowing a lot about it. And, we like to meet the people and talk with them, have them show them around where like our offices and our showroom and say, look, see, this is what we are. We are a high quality fence company. And so these are what our standards. So we want you to understand like what you're trying to get into. Like we do the whole like dog and pony show and everything before we get into anything when it comes to like our important products.
Gotcha.
There are plenty of companies out there from all the industries that's going to be able to do the cheapest and the fastest for you. And for some people, that's great, but for us and for the customers that we're targeting, that's not what they're looking for. They want quality. They want something that's going to last. And they want a company that's not just going to install that product, but stand behind it. And I can't do that if I don't make sure my vendors that we're, purchasing from can provide that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I guess with that in mind, since you guys do keep a primary set of vendors that you trust and you have a relationship with, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned about those relationships or the process that you go through with those vendors?
One of the biggest things I've learned is that the person you're dealing with, like even just down to the single rep that you're dealing with at the company, can really make or break your relationship with them. If you get a company that has a great product with, great times, great pricing, everything's great, but you have a rep that's constantly messing up your orders or can't get something right or is unavailable, like you can't reach them, like that individual person can really make a big deal in how that vendor relationship actually grows.
Okay, so react time and making sure that they get everything accurate on the front end there.
Yeah.
So Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah. I would say something important I've learned is, mutual respect between us and the vendor is really important, and not just for me. I think not just being like, I'm the customer, I'm always right, and this is what you need to do to help me. Like, me treating the vendor with care and kindness is really important, because, sometimes things get messed up and they're not doing it to hurt me, because I'm their customer and I know that they want to keep me happy because that's their business. So I need to make sure that I'm not lashing out at them when something's going wrong, because I know they're not doing it to me on purpose, because I feel like if I can be understanding of them, then that creates a relationship that allows them to be understanding of me when I run into an issue, like with a customer who's really unhappy, or like we messed up something and we need, like Amber was saying, like need something right away. They want to help me because, I've shown them compassion, and so they will do so in return. So I found that, having a really positive relationship with them as much as possible, and even when I'm getting frustrated about something, trying not to let that come through in the way I'm interacting with them is really important. I feel like that helps me. Like, I have some vendors that I feel like, they will go above beyond to help me because I have worked really hard to make a positive relationship with them.
Yeah, you guys have a unique perspective because this is you being the customer, but you deal with customers. So you kind of
we see it from the other side too, of how customers get real angry at us real fast, and we're like, we're sorry, like we didn't have any control over this thing that happened. So I use that perspective all the time in terms of being a customer.
Yeah, it's like Jessica was saying, those relationships with them and treating them right. Like I was saying, having one person that you're dealing with can make or break it. So if you're, even if they're, how they have, issues, if you're treating them badly in those situations, like it really doesn't make them want to work any harder for you. So like you really have to kind of get used to their personalities and yours, and just make sure you're always mindful of the fact that they've got a job to do too. They're trying to sell things and grow their business just as much as we are. So having that good relationship with them is really important.
Yeah.
So Amber, are you saying that threatening them is not a good way to make them work faster?
I don't know. I guess it depends on the situation. Might want to call Mark and ask him how he handles it. I'd say probably not, though. I like to bribe with cookies instead of threats. It just works a little bit better.
There you go.
So, and anyone out there listening, cookies apparently is the way to go here to make people work faster.
I'm telling you.
So I think
truck drivers like coming. It's funny how much faster you get on the delivery list when you have cookies waiting for them.
It can't hurt. It cannot hurt sending cookies.
Yeah, never.
Nope.
Agreed. All
right. So what is something that is still challenging when it comes to your supplier relationship? Even though, maybe you worked with a supplier for years, is there anything that you still find challenging just in general? Amber, we can start with you.
Like I said, I'm really lucky. We have some really great vendors and some really good reps at those vendors that make it a lot easier trying to order things and navigate that world. I think the biggest challenge is really just juggling it all, like knowing who to call and how to order different things. I mean, that was something that was very new to me before I came to SWI. I didn't order a bunch of stuff. That wasn't really my area that I worked in. And so I've been, learning that as I go. It's a juggling act, ordering the different things from the different vendors and keeping it all straight. So we do use different platforms and techniques to try and keep, all of that straight. But that's really the biggest thing for me, is just juggling who to order from and what to order and how much of all that to order. And that's where, I talk to my team, talk to Mark, talk to our vendors. I even ask them, like, what do you suggest on this? And I have a good relationship with them. So they give me, good answers. I don't have to worry that they're going to give me an answer just so they can sell more. They're going to tell me, what is realistic for me. And they're really helpful. But it's a lot.
It is a lot trying to manage all of that. I 100% agree. Yeah. I would say for me, like a challenge is, we were talking a lot about developing these relationships and these personal relationships. And sometimes you're working with these people for years and you get like really friendly with them. But it's also important to remember that they are still a business and their business is to make money and, to try and sell a product for the best price that they can. And that's always going to be at odds with us where, as a customer, we want to buy the best price that we can, And so as much as you feel like you're friends with these people, like you get into instances where, you do need to maybe challenge them sometimes, and be like, this just isn't going to work for me, or even, not even dealing with pricing where, Amber was talking about the importance of like the reactivity of a sales rep, and getting you what you need. And like, sometimes, they get really busy and their reaction time slows down. And, you're like, this person's my friend. I've been working with them for years, almost as closely as I do with my actual coworkers, at my company. But I'm getting frustrated with what's happening, but I don't want to go to their manager and get them in trouble because I want to keep maintaining this good relationship with them. And it's like trying to get that balance of, this good relationship you have while also the professional side of things. And, that can be difficult. I find sometimes is a big challenge for me.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we want things fast and we want a good price on everything. And they want to, David juggling at themselves and trying to get all these orders out and scheduling that. I can't even imagine scheduling all that stuff to be shipped out the way that they do. They can be really quick too. And it's like, how are they doing that? It's amazing. But it's at the end of the day, like we all have to have that middle ground where they're getting what they need to be able to grow and succeed, because we want them to be, I want them to get bigger and be better and have more things, because that helps us out as well. But we still need to have that bit too. So I agree with that entirely.
Yeah. And would you guys say, because we've seen a lot of changes, over the last 5 years, would you guys say that you've seen more turnover at your suppliers in the last few years? And has that affected your guys' ability to maintain close relationships?
I don't have that problem with the vendors we've dealt with. The vendor I deal with a lot of them has been the same. We have had some that has, a couple of them have had some turnover. And it does impact a lot. You get used to dealing with it one person where you're like, you go to message them and they're gone. You're like, oh man, like they know. And you have to kind of remind them, like we get a lot of special cuts because of the way that we do our fencing. And so, I had one of our vendors, they lost their sales rep for whatever reason. And I put it in my next order and they didn't put in our special cuts. And so we get stuff delivered. And I'm like, oh, like none of this works for us. And so that kind of thing, you forget that when you get used to that one person that knows what you need. So it is difficult watching them go. I mean, hopefully they're going on to something that makes them happier, but it definitely sucks. But thankfully we haven't had too many of that issues. And because of the relationships we have with our vendors, they were able to take care of that and fix it for us. But it definitely slowed things down.
Yeah, I mean, same. Our bigger vendors, we really haven't seen a change. The people that have been there are still there. Some people kind of moved positions within companies, but still in relation to us. Like, I have one vendor with a sales rep, again, that we've been working with for I've been working with her for 15 years, I think. And she has moved positions, but as she moves, she like keeps a core number of customers that she works with, being one of them, because we have such a good relationship that she wants to maintain that. So, I haven't had too much experience of having to relearn things with a new person. Thank goodness, because that is a challenge I do not enjoy having to deal with.
Nice. That's great. I'll let Jen.
The last one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you could wave a magic wand and improve one aspect of how you order your materials or the process of ordering, what would you change?
Oh, I love this question. I really do. It's a really great question. I even actually talked to Mark about this one before. When I saw him, like, oh man, that's just such a great question to have on there. And he made a really good point. I think because, he doesn't, as social as he is and as great as he is on social media and all the videos and stuff like that he does, if he can go on there and do a couple clicks and have things ordered, like he would do that any day. That's a great idea. But I think just having like a transparency, like we have certain vendors that'll give us a sheet and it'll be everything that we order from them and it's a price, and they'll tell me, these prices are good for this amount of time, months, that to me, if we could have every vendor do that, would be a dream. It's such a time saver to be able to go on there and be like, oh, look, that's how much this is going to cost me right now if I order it, and I can punch it in and go. Versus like my sales guys, they have to go in. They have to build their jobs. They have to send them off to get estimates. We have to wait for pricing to get back. And then if you want more than one quote, you have to do that again for someplace else. So like having like a price sheet or an online to where I can just go on there and see it real time would just be amazing.
Amber, I made the exact same note. My magic wand would be every vendor at the beginning of the year has set pricing and says, this is your price for the year. And I don't have to change anything, because the amount of downstream work it creates when prices change is just like astronomical. Because it's not only just like getting a new quote, for each new job that you're trying to order, but like, we keep track of our inventories and we have to keep track of the same product, but in like 3 different ways, because those different bundles were bought at different prices, and then like adjusting the retail pricing in our estimating software, and then like relaying that to everybody. Like, oh my gosh, it's so much work. So yeah, I agree. Like if they didn't have to follow markets, and if they could just be like, this is our pricing for this year, I would love that.
And not even one a year, guys. Like, come on, give me a few months. Like, give me a few months.
Shoot for the moon, Amber. Come on, go for a year.
I'm a baby step person. Let's just do baby steps. Let's give me like 3 months of pricing, and I would be great, because we have customers that they're not doing a small little project. Like those customers go quick, but we'll have customers that have huge projects. And it takes time, commercial projects, they take time to make decisions on it. And we can't hold our estimates long enough for some of those, or we do. And we're just like, well, we'll wait the, outcomes here on whether or not we should hold those prices. And when they come back, then it's more work for my team, because they have to redo the prices. Like we have a certain amount of time. Like if you haven't said yes by this time, we have to redo them. And that means going through the whole process again, send those out to quote again and rechanging everything. And then you have a customer who was a yes, that you have to be like, okay, I'm glad you're a yes, but here's your new price.
Unfortunately, 3 weeks ago, prices went up by 5%.
Just that ease or transparency to see. And I could literally have both. Like, I'm a tech girl. You can ask Josh Glover. He knows. I like my Excel sheets. I like my data like that. I'm a numbers person. So having all of that and be able to have, like, here's my vendor number 1, vendor number 2, pricing. And I may know, my second one may be more expensive, but they're faster. At least I know all that stuff from the very beginning, and it would make ordering a breeze.
And you guys know, like we talk to a lot of contractors, we talk to a lot of suppliers, and this is always, we kind
number
of
one.
We always feel like the kid caught between mom and dad, because the suppliers are like, well, we can't provide that. And the contractors are like,
That's
if
all
you
we
could do
want.
it.
That's all we want.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, we're dreaming here, though. This is magic wand stuff. So I get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't tell my customers, hey, this is your price and it's going to be that for the rest of your life either.
Right.
I completely understand that they have to make their money too. They can't, I mean, if their prices go up, they can't sell stuff at a loss just because I wish they could. Like, it's just not how things work, but God, it'd be so great.
It would be nice.
Like they need to get some kind of website that just it automatically updates for them and it just trickles down to us.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely some things in the works. We know some of the big suppliers have tried to make that easier. We won't mention any names here, but the ones that do provide a portal you can log into. And, if any suppliers are not there yet, I hope they're listening so they can take that in mind for their next. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And
that'd be great.
Okay. We'll go ahead and look through some of the questions here because we do have some good questions coming in through the chat. So do you, and I'll direct this to Jessica first, does your company try to support or buy American-made products? Is there any preference given to where that product is made, or does it just depend on the quality?
No, there definitely is something that we consider, and we have a few products that we definitely like. Our vinyl is American made, and we like that. We buy a lot of wood, and that is just not available in America for everything that we buy. But our split rail, all comes from America. We buy wood from Canada, but that's through some American suppliers, so we can support that way. So it is something that we factor in when we're looking at stuff. It's not always an option, but it is in some areas of our business. That is what we try to strive for.
And Amber?
I agree with Jessica. I mean, it really depends. I mean, we can't get the beautiful cedar we have from here where we're at in Florida. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of cedar. You can't get that from palm trees. So we get really, really beautiful cedar, and I wouldn't change that for the world. We got that in, they just make the most beautiful fences.
Mm-hmm.
But we buy, our vinyl is US made. So if we can get the same products, same quality US, I definitely prefer that. And for certain jobs, we have to use American made products, for certain contracts and stuff we have, that's a stipulation is they need to be made in the US. And I totally support that. And if we can get the products made in the US, absolutely.
Yeah.
What kind of contracts do require you to have those American-made products? Is that more on the commercial side with the military? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Some of the military, a lot of the military projects will have that stipulation on it. Some commercial products, that's not military, but a lot of the military projects will be you have to have US made materials, or they don't want it.
They don't want it bugged and shipped in. And Shane Catton says, greetings from Monkey Island. That's nice. Okay, and then I'm trying to read this one. So
I don't understand it. I say we skip it.
Okay. Something about the manufacturing of chain link made in the U.S., but
the machine that it was used to manufacture came from overseas.
Ah, yeah. So, and
I don't know.
How do you guys try to keep open lines of communication with your suppliers? I would put the questions up on the screen, but we don't, for some reason, we don't have the clickability to move those up. So, but what are some of the ways that you guys try to keep those open lines of communication with the suppliers that you like working with?
They make it pretty easy for me. I mean, I have certain suppliers where I can literally send them a text message, I've been out on a job site before and ran into a problem and send a text right there from that. Like, hey, can you get me this? There's some that I don't do that with, but there's quite a few that I can literally text email, call, whatever it is, and they're always available. And there's other ones that I just, we email primarily, and that's cool. So I go based on the relationship with my vendor. Some vendors out here, we just have like a really good relationship. We've dealt with each other so much that that's easy for them to do. And if they need something or have a problem with one of my orders, they know they can text me as well. So we just kind of play it base by base on what the job is and who the vendor is.
And
Yeah. There's definitely like a handful of vendors that, like Amber said, like we have closer relationships with, and that, like they have my cell phone number and they can call me or I call them, but other than that, I mean, email is such a fantastic thing. Like I can't even imagine like having to run a business before email when it was all like phone calls, like
faxes.
I can't even like think about how much harder that would be, leaving voicemails for people and trying to play phone tag, so it's pretty easy to stay in communication with people these days via like text, phone, cell phones and, email. Like I don't have too much problem, getting in contact with vendors, which is nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, my sales guys, they always email. I mean, if it's somebody that they need a call, they have particular questions about, they'll call them. But I mean, like, it's easier for them to just send up an email and get what they need from the vendors and keep going on with whatever else they have in their task list than it is to stop and make phone calls and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And earlier we touched a little bit on the forecasting of materials, because Amber, you said that was something that your vendor helped you with. Your supplier would help you make sure that you're navigating that correctly. Are there any tools that you guys have found to help you keep track of that or help with your end of year forecasting?
So we use Job Nimbus a lot. That's our primary tool for inventory management and POS sales. So it does have a feature on there that does a forecasting on it. It's a newer feature, so I'm still kind of playing around with it and learning to trust it. Right now, I try and rely on the sales that we use. I'll go back and I use POs. So we'll send over POs to all of our vendors when we're ordering things. And so I'll go through, then I'll just review, periodically and see what all we've been using. But Job Nimbus has really helped a lot with our forecasting.
Nice. And Jessica, do you have any tricks or tips in this area?
I reach out to my vendors a lot. Like a lot of them expect to hear from me at the end of the year, and I get them to send me a report of everything that they have sent to us. So that way I don't I used to, some vendors won't do that. And I do like Amber said, like I'll go back and review old POs and we track our inventory so I can see, what have we bought versus what's still here to figure out what we use. And I do a lot of that work, but also for some of them, they literally just send me a report of, here's everything you bought this year. And I can, put that in an Excel spreadsheet. And again, compare that to what we have left. And then boom, I've got my numbers, and then, but in terms of forecasting, that's difficult because then you also have to think about what is business going to be like next year compared to this past year. And the pandemic, things got wildly different. Like those few years, I couldn't forecast for crap because I had no idea what was going to happen, And there was things that like we didn't sell much of, but it's not because people don't want it. It's because we couldn't even get it, and that throws off your numbers too. So like forecasting is definitely one of the bigger challenges, I think, in trying to figure it out, because you want to hope that each year your company is growing, but like how much is it going to grow? And, how much do you want to give yourself some wiggle room? And, you don't want to bring too much in and end the year with like way too much inventory, because then that hurts you, and especially when you're dealing with things like wood that start graying and get old, you don't want that sitting in your yard for too long. So, I have no special tips to give on that. Like it's just a challenge every year, and each year is different because things that happened the year before and what we anticipate for the year after, especially we're in a growth period with our company, so like trying to be like, this is what we use, but we're expanding and we're merging with other companies and trying to figure out what they were going to use, and new marketing that we're doing, and like it's just, it almost feels like a crapshoot sometimes that you're just like, this is my best guess, but we'll have to just wait and see what happens.
Yes.
I don't know about you, Jessica, but I've noticed that certain items are easier to forecast, though. Like there are certain items that we use. Like my aluminum is easy to forecast.
Yes.
Because it's easy to chain link.
I
already said it once.
I hate chain link ever.
Chain link is out. Like I don't even try to. But there are certain parts that are much easier to forecast than other areas. And I mean, I know with like the development going around me, there's a lot of new subdivisions going up. And out here, we have a lot of HOA. So I can pretty much just assume that all these new subdivisions going up, they're going to use a lot of aluminum because that's what they want out here. So just knowing what the communities around me allow, like I try to be really in tune with the HOAs and the regulations that are going on and the new development as far as housing goes, because that kind of helps me figure out, okay, like we're probably going to be using a lot more of this than we will of, we're not going to be using a lot of chain link. We don't sell a lot of it out here in this area anyhow, but with the housing going in, they're not going to allow that kind of stuff. And that kind of helps focus where I need to be even trying to forecast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, looking at what's going on around you is big and important, definitely.
Yeah.
And Jessica, you had a really good point. Like you reach out to your vendor. We know that some suppliers will produce like a pricing file based on what you've purchased. And it's nice to know that they'll also some of them will produce that report based on what you've purchased in the last year as well. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's super helpful. I make a lot of use of that report because, sometimes, I know for the past few years, like these have been our most popular product, but then like seeing that report, I'd be like, oh, but here's this other one that wasn't always popular, but it ticked up this year, and I might not necessarily realize that because it's not one I'm paying attention to, but like those reports are really helpful for that. And again, save a lot of time rather than having to go back and review everything that we purchase because we generate a lot of POs in the course of a year.
Yeah. Not only that, but having special software that, like if you input in there, this is my aluminum jobs, like they know what kind of jobs it is, can get you those graphs and charts where you can kind of see how your materials flow throughout the year. So having something like that, like a visual that will show you your peaks and lows as far as the material types, everything like that is really handy. It kind of lets you know, like, all right, the beginning of the year, I need a lot more of this than I do at the end of the year, so that helps a lot, having those visual graphs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point too, because like in terms of like stocking product, like the amount of product that we have to stock in April and May is completely different than what we want to have in stock in November and December, because it's such, I mean, for you, it's probably a little bit less so being, down south where the weather is a little bit more constantly, you're able to do work throughout the year. But, me being up in the, mid Northwest, gosh, sorry, using my words, but I'm in Pennsylvania. And so, like the winter really slows us down. Like we have our peak months of like March through June. And like, that is like, we have to have really high inventories.
Yeah.
But then we got to make sure we're starting to bring things down. And so, seeing those peaks and flows of where we want to be at each point of the year is really important too.
It just helps you get those trends so you know where you need to be at, So any tool that's out there that lets you input that in there, I mean, even from the time we make appointments, it lets us put those in there. That kind of thing really does help a lot to guide you throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so any estimating software that you're using should have analytics so you guys can go back and check on those things. That's definitely really important.
Yeah.
So to help wrap up here, whoop, whoop, somebody said fence cloud in the house. Is there anything else that you wish you could tell your supplier, to help improve overall procedures, relationships? Is there any parting wisdom you would like to give to suppliers out there before we call it for tonight?
I mean, I would like to tell my vendors, thank you. I mean, they put up with me, which is a lot sometimes, So I appreciate them and all that they do. there's really nothing that they can do to make my job any easier unless they want to go ahead and find that magic wand someplace. That'd be awesome. But other than that, you know, like I think one good thing about it is just to acknowledge when you have good things, you know, like having good vendors, having good relationships, having good people that you can go to request, you know, quotes and stuff like that. That's pretty much all I can ask for.
Yeah. I would say, like, you know, yes, thank you to great vendors. And part of being a great vendor is communication. Like I would say that to vendors, like communicate with your customers, because that's really important. Because, you know, kind of going back to what Amber was saying about, you know, like you can be a really great company, but if you don't have a great relationship with that sales rep because they're not very reactive or they don't get back to you, like that's really hurting. So like keep that communication open. Like, you know, if a customer has orders in with you, like help them stay on top of those orders, you know, like try and anticipate their questions about it. Like, you know, keep track of like your lead times, you know, and don't wait for your customer to be like, hey, this was supposed to ship last week, but we haven't seen anything. Can you tell me where it is? Like, if you can like be proactive and say, hey, the adjusted lead time is this, you know, it's probably going to ship this. Like that kind of stuff is just so helpful and so wonderful to get, that I would say like anything you can do to like give your customer as much information about their products and your products as possible and their orders, like that's great.
And let us know about new stuff. You know, I'm never shy about learning about something new out there. I'm constantly learning more about, you know, products and things that are out there that we could be using. So I'm like, don't be shy if you got something new, like share it with me. I love getting those emails when they're telling me, hey, guess what? We're carrying something new in. Here's information about it. Bring it on. I always wanted to learn more about the stuff that's out there, and just having somebody that's knowledgeable I can go to and this patient with me as I learn some of the different stuff, you know, the different chain link and all that stuff. Like I appreciate having somebody that's patient. I may not have any patience though.
Anyone with something new can get a hold of Amber because apparently she's wide open for it.
I'm here. The email is Mark Olson.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you so much for taking the time and answering these questions. And just, I know we've helped other ladies out there, and just everyone that watches this live, thank you for joining. And for the people that are watching later, I know they will get good information out of this. So I'm sure this will definitely benefit a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you for having us. Like this was a lot of fun. I was a little bit nervous, but it was
And in January, we're going to be doing a session with some of the suppliers. So we'll get to see this from the suppliers' perspective as well. So that'll be really fun. And if anyone's looking for more information on the women of FWA, the website is live. So you can go to womenfwa.com and get to see some updates and more information. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.